So let's talk today about the specificity on the CSS. But before talk about the specificity on the CSS, you have to guys to understand the most important what it means the cascading on the CSS. Do you know some else what it means the cascading on the CSS? What it means the cascading on CSS?
What does cascading mean?
Cascading.
It means it's passed down?
Yeah, that is correct now. So cascading is means I think so you're asking Daniel, today workshop is about the specificity, but you talk about the cascading, what it means. So the name for the CSS is the short one, 3 letters, CSS, but on the long name is cascading style sheets. That one cascading this means. So let's have a look on for the example what this means the cascading. Cascading will be our browsers will be read our property from the top to the bottom, from first line, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, until one read the whole caution. So let's have a look on for the example. On the left hand I have the sum paragraph with the sum text, and for example you want to change from color. Let's say, for example, color red. So, sorry, what is that?
Refresh, you need to refresh.
Yeah.
Browser.
So, actually, our color is changing. And if I want to change the Nava color, for example, to put the color blue, for example. Yeah, the color is changing. So why you have the two property for the tag P, two colors, the red one and the blue, and why is changing the blue? Let's have a look on the inspect. So did you remember the guys, Ricardo, how many times told about the DevTools? You have to open DevTools. It's not helping just for the snippets. Every single front ender you have to open the So that one is our paragraph, and if you will be more style, and so our browsers, look, you have here you have two selectors with our tag P, and first one is the color red, and the browser defined the Nava color blue, sorry, define the Nava color and apply it. That means it's cascading. If you, what is that? Yeah. And how I told the browser starting to read our property to the top, to the bottom. For him is finding the selector up, which one means our div, to apply the text line, center, font size, blah blah blah. And after that, him find our selector P with the color red, him changing, no problem at all. And him find it as well, the Nava selector of tag P. And him find it with the property color blue. Him change what the problem, because that one means cascading. It's so simple. So let's talk now about the specificity. So specificity, in my opinion, you have to know that every single developer, which one is work on the web, front end, full stack, it should be done now the basic. For my opinion, it's unacceptable if you are the full stack developer and you don't know about the CSS, the basics one. So what this means the specificity? Specificity means is actually is a number. So our selector have a number. I show you. So the lowest one, the selector, if you remember on the previous workshops about the CSS, is that one guy, star, if you remember. That one guy have the 0 points, 0 number on the specificity. Is 0, actually don't have any specificity. After them is going the tag selector, like a span, div, h1, span div, h1 for example. That one guys have the 1 point for specificity. After them is going is coming the class selector. If you already should be know what is class selector, class name. The class selector have 10 points of specificity. So after the classes, do you hear about the ID? Yeah, that is correct. After them is coming ID. Yeah, ID. The ID is the bigger one on the specificity. Him have the 100 points of specificity.
What about attributes?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, attributes is the same like a classes. Attributes is like when you have the inputs, and the inputs have the attributes type text or type password. Attributes. Yeah. The attributes is the same like a classes. Have the 10 points of specificity. Actually, let's have a look on the example. If I want to change, if I do like that, let's put green, for example. What do you think, guys? What the color will be for our paragraphs? And why? It's main what?
No, because of cascading.
Yeah, Jeff is right. Jeff is right. Our paragraph is green.
You move it to the top?
Yeah. Right. And now what the color will be for our paragraphs? Why? Can you say that?
Because it's cascading down, so mouse wanted action.
Not really. In that one case, it's the same green. When the browsers will be when the selector will be the high from the specificity, the cascading doesn't work for that one case. Yeah. Let's have a look. How many points you have here for the specificity? Classes, how many points have it? 10 plus 1, because you have the first one is the class selector, second one is the tag selector. That means you have the 11 points for the selector.
Is that an official point system?
Yeah, browse. Yeah.
Just made it down.
So on the tag selectors, you have the 1 point of the specificity. That this means. That this means the app and p selector is biggest one. So if you have the, let's put the some ID, for example. ID, let's put the text. Color, let's put purple.
Yeah, it will be
What you think, guys?
the 100, yeah, this is the highest one.
Yeah, that is correct, guys. That is means the specificity. So let's have a look on the CSS. You have the more powerful tools, but actually, if you will be use it, it's bad experience. Let's have a look. For example, it's coming ours. I don't know. For example, it's coming our senior full stack developer. Let's say Aisel. And she's giving for us the one big one project. And she said, Daniel, can you change it for that on paragraphs, changing the color? And I said, what problem I said, I will be changing, why not? So I applied the color for our paragraph color red. It's not changing, why? Browser will be saying, Daniel, you are a developer, but you don't know about nothing the specificity. Okay, browser, what the problem? I will put the class with the classes already. I put it. I have it already here. I change it. I put the classes and the specific and the tag P. It doesn't change the color. Why? I have to inspect what happens. So in that one case, you have that one most powerful tools. Let's say it's like a tools. That one specifically for that one tools is the biggest one. I don't know. Have the 1000 I think. So I don't know, to be honest. If you have a look, our text is changing in the green. So that one instrument, my opinion, and I use it to debugging. For the example, I don't know what happens on our properties overwriting, and I have that one tools for the debugging. What happens to find? So I find it. So my property is overwriting. So I find it. My property is overwriting. And now I'm going to up to find it. So I find it. That one means is our property source of the text select with the ID selector text. It was on Carol Popper. That one I find it and straight away to have to delete it. If you can ask the Ricardo, because Ricardo is as well is good developer and having him back a lot of years experience, and him can confirm that, because if you use that one tools, if you import and if you'll be leave it like that, that one is bad, very bad experience.
So you can't leave the important?
No. It's just my opinion, that one you can use for debugging. What happens? Because actually that one problems means, and actually they've almost of you guys. And you can use that one important to debugging. What happens? What is the problem? If you find it, yeah, if you find it the problem, my property is overwriting, and now you have to check where is your properties overwriting.
So what does that do? So you put important?
Yeah, the exclamation mark and important. That one is doesn't matter how your selectors is. Yeah, it's overwriting. Yeah.
So it's stronger than any specificity.
Yeah, it's on the top one. It's on the top one.
Can I add something on that?
Yeah.
So the classic job interview question is, what do you think about the important suffix? Right? Then as Dennis said, that's a bad thing because it causes problem. It's a good way to detect how good the quality or how bad the quality of the CSS is, right? So you have a look at the snippet and there are lots of important all around.
Yeah.
It's messy, right? However, then something I used to ask in the past is, okay, can you tell me any scenario where you can use important, you can defend using important because it's an acceptable strategy? Does anyone know when using /important is not such a bad idea?
Like a warning sign that pops up.
No.
Only
No.
for helping your
Have you
disabled where you want to override stuff.
Accessibility.
accessibility?
Not really.
Maybe keep it consistent, the property. For instance, if it's green color, to keep it consistent green throughout.
Wrong.
No.
So there are two well, not two valid answers, but there are two common answers. Answer number one is if you want to get fired.
Why?
Yes. And the second reason, which is the serious one, is, and actually that happens, and I do that from time to time. Imagine that you are importing a library.
External.
It happens, for instance, with the tooltip, right? So I know some of you have been playing with tooltips. So when you hover a button, you want to see a nice message, yeah? So when you do npm install React tooltip, for instance, so generally speaking, the tooltip itself, it comes with a bunch of styles. Yeah, you remember someone last week, I think it was you, Mo, to talk about style components, or Ashley, right? So we're talking about components that they offer you a default styling. out of the box, which is not necessarily a bad thing. That means you install the component and then your tooltip is blue, green, whatever, right? Something style, something nice. But what happens if you don't want to have a blue tooltip? You want to have a green tooltip. Maybe you create a new CSS file, you inspect what's the class name of the tooltip, and then you say, okay, it shouldn't be green. Now background color equals purple.
For example, it's possible to modify on existing one.
Yeah, but you try purple, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because the creator of the library and the CSS that is inlining as part of the bundle is doing div, then ID, then it has a very specific CSS rule, very long one, right? So even if I go to my CSS and I say tooltip purple, that rule, because of specificity, will never apply because the creator of the library was more specific than me, right? Because I don't want to mess around with all the selectors that the guy put on his library, which is not my library. The only way I have to effectively override his styles is to add slash important, because we don't have control on the source code. So it's something that we just want to override because we don't have the capability to modify the original source code. In that example, that's about practice because you have control on the source code. But if you integrate with a third-party library, that's not always the case.
I mean, in some cases where you want to make changes for accessibility reasons, where your sort of whole application is set and
Yeah.
totally laid out.
Yeah.
You want to override different things, different things for visually.
Yeah, but you don't need to use the slash important, right? For accessibility reasons, same for UI reasons, for UX reasons, you can customize the behavior of your application without the need of using the slash important, right?
Is there a way to use a weight to the important as well, or is it just one important?
It's one important. That's it. Yeah. Thankfully, that's it.
Very important.
Very important. Yeah.
Yeah, you can put very important.
Final project, final 2, final 3, beyond final.
Yeah. So, any question?
So how many importance we can use?
0.
Zero.
No,
Yeah.
I mean to debug the problem.
You can use how much as you want to debug. So it's
So it's not
helpful.
overwriting each other like important.
No, you can use how many you want, but when you're debugging, what happens? You have to delete it. Don't leave it. If you leave it, you are lazy.
There are styles applied by the browser and the users themselves. Say in a browser on a website, I don't want to change the font myself, for example.
In DevTools, you mean?
Not just DevTools, some browsers allow you to change the size.
Yeah, in DevTools, yeah. When you're changing on DevTools, some styles, it's never changing on your source code. So, you mean like that? If you want here to change the color, yeah, with some red, yeah.
No, not quite. Sometimes the browsers allow you to change the fonts and things like that.
So, what? I didn't get the question.
I'll explain later.
Okay.
It's outside of this.
So pretty much that's it, guys. If you don't have any question.
The question is, it might be not best question, but the syntax was exclamation mark and important.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have to add this where it is important, or I have to add this to block something.
No,
with
on the property. Which one? On the property, which one you want to change it? So
let's say
like here in the same line of the property. If you have this here, for example, text align or background color, on the same line.
overwrite.
Yeah, that one property is just gonna be overwriting. It's not all the block.
Because of the exclamation mark.
Yeah, and important. Yeah, yeah. So pretty much that's it, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you leave, I would like to add something. Thank you, Daniel. It was really
Thank
good.
you.
one more thing about specificity. So I'll take Daniel's example, and I'm going to add something else. Look, I'll delete everything.
What was the toxicity of attribute again?
1. No, sorry, 10.
10.
Yeah. So if I do text, background, color, green, right? This is what we already seen, right? So let's see if that works. Yeah, let's bring a bigger title. For readability purposes, you'll see why I'm doing this. Yeah, green, easy, right? So now, there is something else about the specificity. Can I do that? That's the most specific. Interesting. So first of all, is that HTML valid?
Yes.
No, it's JS.
That's correct. That's not the HTML standard. This is one of the few differences between HTML and JSX. Let's see if it works, first of all. Yeah? It does work. Even though it does work, if you pay attention, we got a warning saying, oh, unsupported style. Background color. Did you mean background color? You remember what's the name of this case? Oh yeah, that one. Which one? Kebab case. And that one? Camel case, correct. So, even though I think we all agree that this is the correct syntax in CSS, React doesn't really like it. So React is suggesting us to modify it a bit far, yeah, using camel case instead of kebab case, and then React is completely happy. So, this is another way to change the specificity. And now, if I add slash important, so according to Bala, this is like the winner. This is 1,000. And how much slash important is? Let's have a look. Slash important is even more specific than inline styles. The way you'll create inline styles with HTML will be something like that. Style, background color, red, semicolon. Yeah? Can we do that? Can we add an important on the inline style? No, you can't, right? So, yeah. So even though the style is more specific than the ID, it's still less specific than the slash, the exclamation mark important suffix. So that's the most specific and probably the worst way to change the default specificity of your content. So inline styling. That's another classic question on every job interview. What do you think about that? Is that any good or not? No? Yeah? Yeah? Correct. So this is wrong because of multiple reasons, right? First of all, separation of concerns. JavaScript is for JavaScript, CSS is for CSS. Don't mix things, right? That's the first reason. Then, reusability. So if we declare that CSS rule, it only applies to that particular element. How can we reuse it again? We can't, right? If you declare a CSS rule, we can have the same class name multiple times, yeah? So even though I hope everyone agrees this is a bad practice, then as you imagine, my question is then the same. Is there any scenario where you may want to use inline styles? Like this?
For me,
protect the code.
Multiple people access it, but you don't want it to be.
You don't protect the code against anything, because look, I can actually inspect it. Look, I can see what this guy wrote it, right? So it's not, I'm not protecting anything.
If there's an ID style already
Yeah?
in your CSS, then the only way to override is using.
No, look, if you got an ID, I got an ID, the correct way to override it is going to the CSS, right? On the CSS, yeah, if you got access to the HTML, you got access to the CSS, right?
Then you can do it, yeah. So if you don't, and someone else is using your ID, and then you want to
Someone else, right, someone else is using your ID, but then it's his fault, it's not your fault, right? If someone is changing your CSS, yeah. So there are 3 reasons why we may want to use inline styling. Some of them are relatively obvious, some of them are tricky, but still valid. Anyone? Any of these 3 reasons? No? I'll give you one. And again, I'm not saying the reason is necessarily strong enough to defend that strategy, but that's a reason. First of all, encapsulation. If you want to deliver a library, generally speaking, you need CSS and JavaScript. If you put everything inline, it's one file, right? Simpler. You got everything in one file. It encapsulates better. One reason. Again, I don't want to say that because of that reason it's a good idea to do that. No, but it's a reason. Then, the next 2 reasons are, there is a very powerful reason. Let me see if I can search React tooltip. Yeah, I should have prepared that before, to be honest. Not sure if I can find any. Let me see if out of coincidence, I can, yeah, examples, online examples. Let's see if one of these examples, I don't see the online examples. Oh yeah, here you go. Yeah, that's not a great example. Placement maybe. Okay, if this doesn't work, no. So that library is not the one I was looking for, right? But anyway, so I'm sure you've seen in some cases this kind of tooltips that they follow your mouse. So whenever you move the cursor, the tooltip follows you. Yeah. So the only way to do that is with JavaScript. So with JavaScript, you can create an event on mouse move. For instance, on mouse move, you detect the exact position of the mouse, and then based on the position, you go to your HTML, and then you can do something like that. Left 30, left 20, left 10, dynamically, yeah? So this is a really good use. This is probably the most common reason why sometimes you need to write inline styles. You cannot do that with CSS because the position is not 10, 20, 30. It's dynamic. It could be 10, 11, 12, yeah, depending on the cursor. That's the most important reason. There is a last reason that is pretty exotic, but some companies like Amazon, they do that because probably they save millions a year because of doing that. So inline styling is slightly more performant than external styling. Yeah?
Okay, so why wouldn't we update the CSS for that ID rather than doing inline styling?
Why don't we?
So we still have an ID there, right?
Yeah.
So we still change the style for the ID
Yeah.
rather than doing it inline.
Yeah.
So I'm saying it's not the performance reason.
The performance reason. So doing left 10 on the left hand side is slightly more performant than doing left 10 on the CSS. Slightly. Something that no one noticed, right? If you're creating a regular app. But for companies like Amazon, with all the volume they have of customers, these subtle improvement changes make the difference. Even though they do that, and if you check on the Amazon websites, if you inspect a bit, you will see these kind of things. Don't forget something. Generally speaking, even if you see that in the resulting code, like the one I showed before, right? So here you can see inline styling, you see, style left. In reality, that doesn't necessarily mean that at development time, they do that. They have some algorithms that whenever they compile, they build their assets. You remember npm run build? Yeah. whenever they do that, they analyze CSS and JavaScript, and they transform that. So at development time, they got that. Just a div with the ID. And then they say, okay, wait a minute. I noticed that on the CSS, I'm changing the left position. To make it slightly more performant, I'll remove it from the CSS, and I'll drop it on the JavaScript, on the HTML. Yeah? No. So that's a build thingy. That's a Webpack. Yeah. When you install Create React App, do you remember? One of the dependencies that got installed for you is Webpack. Webpack is a mechanism to build and to manage modern web applications. So one of the things you do with Webpack is npm run build that concatenates everything and creates a bundle, right? So with Webpack, you can actually do this kind of tricks. Yeah. So performance. Anything else?
Why wouldn't we do that?
Why don't we do that? Because then build time is slower, right? If you need to parse, it takes longer to build. And again, because the advantage of using that is something that the human cannot, in a normal application, you cannot see that because applications are small enough, right? But if you have a large scale application, that could make the difference. Yeah? If you are interested about CSS performance, which is something quite exotic, because the majority of the good JavaScript developers, they struggle with CSS. So I'm not even talking about performance. They struggle to paint things on the screen, right? But still, performance is an important thing, right? Again, Smacks, yeah? Smacks. The book I recommend you like 40 times already. Yeah? So that book, the guy is really, really good analyzing the performance of CSS. So the guy, for instance, tells you things that never, ever do things like that. So, foo, blah, div. Yeah? So you know so what that means. What that means is try to find an element with class name foo. Inside of foo, find another element with class name blah. And inside of blah, find another element type div. And then apply whatever change you want. That line that feels naive in reality is dangerous. And he explains that really well. What he says is that in reality, CSS is processed not from left to right, but from right to left. What that means? That means CSS, the browser, will first of all try to find all the divs on the screen. You may have thousands of divs on the screen. So from a memory point of view, yeah, your app is getting heavier. And once you found thousands of divs, find all the blah elements inside of them, and then find all the foo elements, right? So we should be very careful with this kind of selectors. You may think, okay, I just have one div inside of foo and blah, one div, but no, it will work on the other way around. Again, we're talking about milliseconds, so nothing you should worry about, generally speaking. But it's good to know how it works, because in a job interview you can explain that, and probably they wouldn't even know it works in that way. Yeah?
Is that similar to something like reduce right? What are you talking about?
Reduce right.
Yeah, so I googled it and it's saying to do this, so it works backwards.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Yep. Reduce right. Is it part of the standard? Okay. Yes, I understand. Yeah. Chrome settings, yeah. Settings, yeah. 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 Yeah, and that's CSS, right? Okay. Yeah.
So, what is the sort of importance of these in relation to
Yeah, so the thing is, yeah, it's a good question actually. When you create a web, this is a bit unrelated, right, to specificity. But anyway, if I have some text on the screen, even if I don't have any styling, right, obviously the browser needs to decide what's the font size, the default one, or the color. Why black? You need a color. It could be transparent, but it will be pointless, right, from a usability point of view. So the color takes some assumptions. One of them is the font size. The color is assuming what's the default font size. And the way to prove that, if you select an element, you will see you got a computed tab. So on the computed tab, essentially, you can see what the browser is doing by default. For instance, font size. You see font size, by default, is 32 pixels on a heading. Why? Look, user agent styles it. The browser is the user agent. That's what Chrome by default decides to do, right? But obviously, then you can go to settings, wherever it was. Now is the time that by mistake I'll show you all my passwords. Yeah, so when you do page zoom in or customize font size, right, medium. So by default, Chrome sets the font size of headings to 32. But I'm sure if I change it to large or very large, the default will be 40 or 48 or whatever. Yeah. Anything else?
If we did that and applied an importance in our style sheet.
Yeah. No, again, these are the defaults. The default means unless you set the opposite, these are the defaults.
What you're saying is that Chrome setting
Yeah.
is the lowest priority.
It is the lowest priority, that's correct. Actually, look, if I go to the CSS and I said, no, font size is 800 pixels. Wow, yeah? Yeah, so now if I check the computed font size, you see, is not 32 anymore. You see, here, that's very interesting because you see 2EM. So 2EM in that particular case means duplicate the default font size of the browser. So the default font size is 16 pixels, duplicate it, so the heading will be 32. But not sure if you can notice, probably not, but this is strike through. I mean, no, that was the default, but not anymore, not valid, not active anymore, because now someone decided it was a good idea to set a font size at 800 pixels, right? Good luck with that. Anything else? No? Cool, that was it, guys. Cheers. Thank you, Daniel. Cheers.
Thank you.